Being a single mom and doing it all by yourself is brutal. Learn the brain and energy tools to get back to your center and overcome your challenges. Welcome to Single Moms Doing It All. This is Muriel Felous, your host. And today we are going to talk about EQ versus IQ with my guest, Trina Casey, who's talking to us from Amsterdam, ladies and gentlemen. So that's very, very nice. And before further ado, let me bring Trina on the screen. Hi, Trina, how are you?
Good. How are you, Marielle?
I'm great. I'm terrific. So, like I mentioned, you are valuing emotional intelligence before even intellectual intelligence. And I would love for you to tell our audience how you ended up to doing what you're doing today and why.
Okay. Well, EQ above IQ is basically about emotional intelligence being more important than IQ, which is the intellectual intelligence. And the reason why I chose that is because emotional intelligence sets the field for you to become intellectually intelligent. If you do not create this is a muscle in our body, in our brains. And a person who is intelligent as far as academia could struggle socially if they don't understand emotional intelligence. But the other way around is usually not the case. So if you're emotionally intelligent, you actually have the space and the peace to actually learn more productively because you're more relaxed, you're more aware of yourself, you know how to interact with people socially. Um, it's amazing, and there's lots of research behind that.
And we even have seen, like, because I hear a lot about genius ideas coming when we are in nature or in our shower. And that's the reason why, right? Because we're relaxed and our brain can function properly.
Right. Yeah. In a neurological way, we learn easily in theta. On my podcast, EQ Above IQ, Parenting with Emotional Intelligence and Healing the Inner Child, the main purpose of it is to basically learn how to reparent yourself through the process of parenting your own children. And because I always say we're all children walking around in adult suits, pretending we have it all figured out while we spread our trauma to everyone we touch, especially our children, because it's such a deep programming that, the ages 1 through about 7 years old, you're basically actually zero. You're absorbing just everything in this hypnosis, so it's very important what you download early in childhood.
We talk about the same thing, you and I, actually, but I focus more on mothers with teens. And I always say, don't have your wounds bleeding on your children, because that's what happens. And that's what I've experienced in my own parenting. I remember when my kids were younger, at a certain point, I stopped and I said, oh my God, I'm reproducing what one of my parents was doing in childhood, and I didn't like it. So it became evident that I had to work on that if I didn't want to continue. So how old is your son? You have one son, right?
Yeah, he's 9. He's 9
He's
years
9.
old.
So when did it become obvious to you that you had to prioritize emotional intelligence before he was born? Or was it a journey that you started embarking on while you were already a mother?
No, this happened a long time ago. When I first moved out of the United States several years ago, I was at kind of an emotional breaking point. I had gotten out of a very bad relationship, and I wanted to figure out why I was choosing the people that I was choosing. So I moved to Italy, to Milan, and I did a sort of a soul searching. I left corporate America because that wasn't satisfying. And I went on this kind of internal voyage. A lot of people liken it to Eat, Pray, Love.
That's what
Every
I
time
was
I
going to
tell this,
say.
everybody tells this, I'm
Your
like, I didn't even read that book until after the fact. I was like, what's that? And then I saw the movie and I was like, oh, I see. Okay. Now I can see why people think that there's a correlation. But so I went to Italy to, mend a broken heart.
Yeah.
And I really soul searched. And I became a Buddhist about 10 years prior to that. And so that was a big shift for me too. So I've had these different levels of shifts, and it's always an ongoing
Process.
healing and process, because I also was ingrained with some pretty toxic messaging at a young age, but I didn't know what that was. I didn't understand what it was. And then after I did some deep work and some different type of modalities of searching, I found, oh yeah, I was molested when I was 5, and that was something that, even though it was like so long ago, is in the back of my subconscious forever.
Yeah.
And it's something that affects so many women. I think 1 out of 3 women have had some type of form of sexual abuse or rape or something like that. So once I brought awareness to it, which is the first principle of emotional intelligence, I was able to start healing and just really owning my choices too.
Yes, because if you are not aware, you can't feel, and if you can't feel, you can't heal.
Exactly.
So that's crucial to become aware of it. And as you said, we repress because it's too painful.
Mm-hmm.
So our brain is amazing. It's protecting us at all costs, but sometimes it's
Right.
against our own interest. And that's the way the brain is designed.
Yep. Autopilot.
Yes. Yes. Are you a
Autopilot.
fan of Bruce Lipton's work? Because
Oh yeah.
yes, yes,
I love Bruce
yes.
Lipton. And Dan Siegel. I like Dan Siegel too.
Dan Siegel, I'm less familiar with, but Bruce Lipton and a lot of others I studied. So when so you work with parents, is that your
Well,
majority of your clients?
yes, I work with parents. I also work with non-parents. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapy coach and also an EQ coach. So I'm not just limited to parents. I actually work with children too. When I teach a class, I teach a writing class called Mindful Storytellers. And
Mm.
in that workshop type course, it's either 10 to 12 weeks. I let I lead them in a workshop of how to write their own book, because I'm a children's book author as well. So that bases all of my stories on the principles of emotional intelligence. So I take them through that process of creating a book in a collaborative learning platform. And they just learn so many skill sets through the process, the self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, um, compassion, and social skills. So those are the 5 principles. And we hit on all of those through the creation process and character development. And it's just beautiful to watch how they kind of blossom in this process.
Isn't it wonderful the way that the universe is guiding us to heal through what we're doing? Because I see that with my podcast too, with my coaching practice. Somehow, when I do an episode during that specific week, something in my life will resonate with the topic that I'm talking about. So it's really magical.
It really is. Remember, did you ever read the Celestine Prophecy?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, there's no coincidences.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
randomness at all. That I'm
No, no.
convinced.
Yeah.
And so emotional intelligence has steps or principles.
Hmm.
How many are there and what are they?
Okay, so 5: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, um, and compassion, and social skills. And how they work together is this. As we said before, if you're not self-aware, you don't know what needs to be healed. You don't know how to what your emotions mean. I always say, name it to tame it. And this is a process I work with children, when they, with my own son. What's going on? You seem really agitated. What would you call that? Let's name it. It's teaching them how to understand what emotion feels, not only in their brain, but in their body.
Yeah.
I would say, what does that feel in your body when you're angry? Is it tension? Is it what about when you're scared? Where do you feel it? Is it in your belly? Is it got like butterflies? And so I really try to walk people through the process of recognizing what emotions feels in their bodies, because emotions are chemicals in the brain that search out other emotion chemicals throughout the body. So depending on the emotion, you're going to have a different reaction in your body.
Yeah.
And so once you learn that, you can go to self-regulation, because you've recognized some part of your body is in some type of crisis. And I love meditation for that. I always recommend that people do some type of breath work or meditation that really pulls you into understanding your body and the states that you're in. And then when that starts to come up, when somebody triggers your trigger, then you're able to go, oh, that's my trigger. And so you can stop it more readily, and not get into such maybe negative conflict. I'm not against conflict, because conflict is a learning tool.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, you sometimes need conflict to clarify not only what you need or want, but also accountability for the other person and yourself. So, and then from there, once you understand your own emotions, you know how to regulate them, you're more open to hear, or well, you actually, sorry, I missed a step. Once you can question what the motivation is of somebody doing or saying what they're doing. What's your motivation too? What's your purpose? Always kind of finding that place of what's important to me kind of brings you to another space as well, another level of understanding.
Yes, because we don't do things randomly. We do things like a button is pushed, which will create the motivation for us to react in a certain way. And emotions are habits, as anything else with us. And what I noticed, like you were mentioning, to identify the emotions, working with men especially, because I recently started working with some firefighters on trauma, and they haven't been taught to feel. First of all, they were taught to not feel, that it's not okay for a guy to feel. That's the old model. And even if they feel, they're not sure about what emotion am I feeling. They know the sensation in the body, but they cannot pinpoint the emotion. And for me, that's where we start, and we reverse engineer to discover what kind of emotion is hiding behind that bodily sensation. And then you can, once you know that's your default mode, when you encounter a certain scenario, you can intervene on that habit. And like you were saying, stop in the moment. And what I noticed is that it starts with awareness after. Oh, I did that, I don't like that. And then when you work on it, it progresses to awareness during, then awareness before, and then the habit disappearing completely if you really rewire your brain. And that's the magic with our beautiful brain, is that you can change.
You can, and a lot of people don't. There are harder eggs to crack. Like narcissism is a really difficult
Yeah.
one, because they are also kind of, there's like a cognitive dissonance, because
Yeah.
they're
The
really
brain is,
holding,
yeah.
yeah, they're really holding on to an identity for dear life. And that's,
Yeah.
and we live in a pretty narcissistic society. So
Unfortunately.
unfortunately, but that I hope to one day really we see that, and so that we can change it. But like, again, you have to have the awareness that that's the reality of what we're living in, because so everybody has this little bit of narcissism within them, because they were programmed to survive in that type of environment. But back to the principal motivation, and then compassion. Then you have to have one, compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
That's the part that we struggle with. We beat ourselves up. We have the self-talk. uh, it's like, I'm a horrible person, all these things. So we have to learn tools to overwrite that, and then we're able to have the compassion for other people. I go, I've been there. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your motivation. So let's talk about it. And then that's where the social skills come in. You're able to get along and motivate and inspire, and and really understand the community around you.
Yeah,
So
you become more like a light instead of a reaction machine.
exactly,
uh,
exactly.
but that too is a learned behavior, the self beating and the
Mhm.
criticism inside. Because I know I was noticing something, and I think it depends also on the culture, but I noticed something about several months ago. I was watching a French program where one of the guests was asked if he was a good person.
Mm.
And I saw that there was such a taboo on saying, I am a good person. He
Yeah.
totally eluded the question. He went like, I don't know if I'm a good person because I don't know if anybody is a good person. There is almost a shame about admitting your who you are and your
Mm.
qualities, your positive traits,
Mhm.
and that's where it starts. Like, I know as kids we were always told not to brag,
Mhm.
and I have to reteach my clients to brag, not in a narcissistic way, not in a self-absorbed way,
Yeah.
but to me. And I always told my kids, it's an offense to not acknowledge what God gave you. If if you have certain,
Self-love.
yeah,
Self-love.
if you have certain talents, certain qualities, if you worked on becoming a compassionate, loving human being, why shouldn't you be aware of that? The more you're
Because
aware,
it's
the more,
shunned.
yeah,
It's really shunned, and it's especially shunned by for women to feel like that about themselves. We're supposed to be very humble and
yeah,
reserved, and even through different cultures, and really cover ourselves up. And there's a whole nother set of rules where men can be more assertive and a decisive decision maker, but those qualities are not, we're actually turned to bossy or loud or crass or whatever. So there's a different vocabulary too for genders. And then for children, there was to be seen but not heard.
yes,
Your voice was stifled
yes,
so young. And if you had an opinion that you wanted to talk to an adult about or whatever, you were completely pushed down and just, that's it, don't talk. And so we've got a lot of people growing up with that programming. And so they don't know how to express their emotions because they've never been given opportunities as children to do it.
yeah. I know for us, the right to be angry was absolutely a no-no.
Yeah.
So then you repress that anger, and you're not even aware that you have anger, and it comes out in the wrong ways, because anything
Yeah.
that we push in the shadow will punch us back in the face at the wrong moment. And it's very complicated, because it's starting to change,
Hmm.
but every emotion has its place, even when it's what they call a negative emotion, as
Yeah.
long as you don't hurt others and you don't stay in it
Exactly.
forever.
It usually manifests in passive aggressiveness.
Yeah.
So especially when kids when kids have a parent who has mental illness or was abusive, and they went into that either freeze um, or flight mode, they usually, later become very passive aggressive. That's how they express themselves, and it's totally unconscious. They become very sarcastic, stuff like that. But I think it's changing as we have more parents becoming more EQ based and having a deeper awareness that their children are reacting in a biological way with their emotions. This is a natural reaction. And that's what I teach all of my clients. The reactions that your children are having are biological.
Yeah.
What your job as their parents is to guide them through that process so that they can be aware that it's happening. That's it. And then from there, they're going to live their life the way they're going to live them. You just want to give them some tools in the
And
process.
to make sure that they don't equate having strong emotions with being something is wrong with me.
Exactly.
Because I've seen close in my own family, like some suicide attempts, and because the pressure from the outside, and especially today with social media, is too strong.
Exactly.
And you don't know how to get out of pain, you don't know what's wrong with you, you don't know how to self-regulate, and the only logical exit that you can figure out in the moment is death, because that's the only exit door. And unfortunately, there are more and more suicides, even in adults, and it's heartbreaking.
Even with children as young as my son, there's been a real upchuck of suicides and depression, and I definitely correlate the social media and media exposure. It's pretty amazing. Even I went back and forth with media with my son, and it's because my ex parents differently than I do. He uses it as a babysitter sometimes, and because we're both entrepreneurs, he works from home. So I'm against it. I say, no, you are not on YouTube. No, you can't use my phone. If you do, you are only allowed to use this particular app, and it's locked. And, because I saw a decline in his happiness as soon as I started being very relaxed with the social media. He's not been very much on social media, but on media in general. And it really rewires the brain. It also downloads the programming about self-esteem, comparison. It's a long list. And you and I probably are from the generation that we can remember when there was only a limited amount of media on TV. There's only a few shows, a certain time of the day.
Like 3 channels when I grew up.
Exactly. There wasn't all these choices, but now they've got all these flashing, and that really neurologically messes with your brain. You can't, it's like you're overloaded.
It's designed to, because
I
it's
know.
designed to make us consume. That's the main motivation behind everything. And unfortunately for teenagers today, a lot of social life is done through social medias.
Yeah, especially with COVID.
Yeah, I've seen my son had his phone broken, and I left it be like that for quite some time because I thought it's going to be positive for him. But then I saw that he was cut out of anything social because he was not on his social media, and everything goes through there. So it's a very difficult thing to juggle. You need to have some kind of balance, and it's extremely dangerous because there is bullying going around. There is so many negative aspects. But as we do with what we have, and we always go towards balance and something healthy.
Right.
when parents come to, first of all, how do people come to you? Do they come to you because they see the certain kind of recurring problem and they can't manage it? Or what is the most dominant reason that people come to you?
It's usually because they're overwhelmed as well, and they see certain patterns in their kids that they're not sure how to handle. Um, it's usually the people who are already kind of becoming aware of their own trauma and sincerely do not want to pass it on to their kids.
Yeah.
And those are really the only clients that I can actually work with, to tell you the truth. If if you're, I can't force somebody to change the way that they think about parenting. It really has to be a choice to go, okay, I don't want this to be my child's future, and that's it. I need some help though, and it's that self-awareness. I can't do it on my own, so that's when I usually get clients, and it's always so nice too, because they're the easiest ones to work with because they're more pliable.
Yeah, because they're already aware or they're conscious.
Yes.
Like you, I work with people who are conscious. A lot of my work is spiritual as well. So there is a spiritual aspect, whatever you want to call it, is your, it's you. You can call it the universe, you can call it God, whatever you want to call it. But there is a notion that we are not only our body.
I agree.
So do you have some concrete example, like a sign, for example, that would mean you have to look at that, you have to intervene maybe on the way you parent? Because I know that for me, my clients are more mothers of teens who rebel, act out, smoke weed, because here in the US, it's a big, big problem. And really serious problems with being even defiant or having problems at school. And I'm talking prior COVID, because now it's even worse. What kind of cases do you see? What kind of signs do the parent come to you with that alarm them, that made them take that step?
Usually depression and their kids really isolating themselves, or just being really snappy with them.
Yeah.
Usually it's the parent feeling the pulling away of the kid. And some of that is natural.
Yes.
Depending on the age of the kid, they want to become more autonomous around even my son's age. He's so embarrassed by me sometimes. Like Mom,
Yeah.
are you talking about me on your podcast? I said, don't worry, none of your friends will hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's usually one of the signs. It's really the depression or constant fighting.
Yes, anger.
The anger. I'm actually getting ready to start with a client who's taken on his brother's children so they wouldn't be put into the state. And because his brother and his brother's wife can't take care of them. So he has no parenting experience. He's gay. He's like, I need help. So, and I just gave him a little bit of advice one day, and he was like, that worked. Because they're like 15 years old and stuff. And so they're like, teenagers are tough,
Teenagers are tough.
Yeah, because they're like halfway to becoming an adult and still wanting to be a kid.
And there are hormonal changes that like take them hostage, literally.
They taking me hostage too.
Yes. I always talk to moms and I tell them there is a way to stay sane. Don't worry. Don't worry. But it starts with us. And that's the beauty, that when you work on you, all your relationship change, because you send a different signal, you talk differently, you do differently, you send cues, like very unconscious cues that are different.
Yeah, you said about spirit and energy. I very much believe in that. That we vibrate at a certain frequency
Yeah.
depending on how we feel inside, and we are just little energetic batteries bouncing up off of each other. And so emotions are battery. You know what I mean? It's just like this big field, and each vibrates and resonates at a different frequency. So that's why you can, if you smile at somebody that wasn't smiling before, they just start smiling.
And they use that, so they call micro expression. Even if
Yeah.
the person is a grumpy one and they don't want to smile, there is that fraction of second of reaction.
Mm-hmm. It comes up.
That's the
They're like, either it's just they can't
secret
help it.
weapon. Secret weapon.
Yeah, I use it quite often.
Yeah.
I used to be teased in high school. They called me Trina Cheese Casey in my annual, and I was upset about that. I didn't know they
Oh,
were going to print that because, oh, she's always smiling. And the funny part is I was smiling, and it was something that was subconscious that I did, but I was deeply depressed, you know?
yeah.
But it was sort of like a survival mechanism that I had created. And who knew that worked? I had no idea at that age. I was 16.
But we have instincts and we
Yeah,
have intuition and we're guided.
yeah, yeah. I think so. I think so,
So there
definitely.
is a question I asked every guest, and we already touched a little bit on it. It's about self-love.
Mm.
What's your definition of self-love? Because it may vary.
To me, self-love is giving yourself the space not to be perfect and to still love yourself anyway, to have deep compassion for the things that you feel like you're not doing well,
Mhm.
and really have the awareness to go, where did that come from? I always ask myself when I start, yeah, where did that come from? Why am I thinking this thought? And I usually find the place. And then there's an exercise that I do is when I have certain thoughts, I write them down and I say those are the lies. Now below I write the truth. The truth is I'm worried about this, or the truth is that I'm actually a really good mother. I'm just having a bad day. You know what I mean? And I always tell every parent, you can repair. And that's what
Oh,
I remind myself when I start doing that, self talk. I can repair this. I can repair what I just did by admitting it and taking accountability.
and it's never too late. That's what I tell
Yeah.
people too. Even if they start when their kids are teens,
Mm-hmm.
not too late. Look, some people start their self-healing in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
It's never too late. And
Yeah.
and love is one of the most powerful
Right.
force in the world. So
Mm-hmm. And I also say, don't aim for perfection. It's not possible. So that's that ought to mind. I ought to be this way or ought to be that way. Mm-mm. You are this. Love this as much as you possibly can, and recognize the areas that you like to improve on. But if you don't love this from the very beginning, you're never going to get to the person that you think you should be.
and what's you can have a set of rules that is different from my set of rules,
Mm-hmm.
and both work.
Yeah,
So there is
absolutely.
no one solution fits all.
Yeah.
uh, it's your set of rules, and you need to be solid in what you think, why you think it, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise your kids will feel if you waver and you're not solid in what you're doing, no matter what you choose to do. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, something good for them, let's say that. But you need to have a solid foundation.
Yeah,
How do
absolutely.
people can contact you?
Well, they can find me on Instagram at This Real Life Books, and you just put an underscore between each word before books, and also on Facebook at This Real Life Books. And my website, you can sign up there with This Real Life Books slash coaching. And I have children's books. I also have a children's clothing line called Gentle Reminders that I created, and I think it's perfect for COVID right now because a lot of us need gentle reminders
Yes.
that our kids are a reflection of who we are. So I have T-shirts for kids and adults that say, I learn respect from your respect. Or I'm your mirror, or be kind, healing my inner child. Just reminders to just trigger you and to go, okay, this too shall pass.
Yes. No, that's
and,
great. That's
yeah.
such a beautiful idea. And you have the podcast too that people
And
can.
yes, EQ above IQ
Yes.
parenting.
And
It's
I'll
emo-
put all that in the description of this episode, of course.
oh, great. Thank
Um,
you.
so before we leave, is there a parting word that you would like to leave the audience with? A message?
Well, like I said previously, we're all children still, and there's a lot of pressure to kind of like sweep that under the rug. You're not really that much different than your child, and those triggers are not you. They're triggers, and they came from your past, and they came from a messaging, and they're not your identity. You
Yes.
know, we're forever changing and evolving on every level if you allow yourself that fluidity. We live in duality. There's no black and white. There's a little bit more gray than there should be because people don't want to be accountable for their behavior. And also using accountable communication is very important with your kids. So and with each other. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
that's where our power lies, to take responsibility of what we're doing.
Yes.
Thank you, Trina, for being here today with us.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having me.
that's a very, very important matter, emotional intelligence. And to me, that's the only way to access higher guidance, because if you're not in the right emotion, you don't even have access to your brain. Your brain doesn't function normally. You can't connect with your intuition. So that's crucial.
Yeah. I think it can change the world if we do it.
Yes, definitely. But there is a need for a lot of it. So
Yes.
what we're doing is important.
Yes. I think there's a collective awakening that's happening anyway.
Yeah.
That's why you and I have connected. That's why, people are listening and seeking out.
Yes.
And I think we're going to get there, but you always have to have a few bumps before it's the suffering that actually brings you to the light.
Yes. And it's, for me, my responsibility lies right now more than anything in holding the light, because we may see everything dark.
Yeah.
There is still a light. There is still a lot of good things happening. There is still a lot of positive. And that's what makes us stronger and resilient.
Yeah. I like to say I'm realistically positive.
Yes.
Optimistic. I'm realistically optimistic, actually. So
yeah, that's nice. That's beautiful to hang on to that. So that's it for today, my dears. And I'll see you next time with another episode. Go and shine your light. Become aware of your emotions and you'll get there. Bye for now. Being a single mom can be challenging, but you don't have to face it alone. Join our community at facebook.com/groups/single and doing it all, and receive tools, tips, and free group coaching. And if you like this podcast, please review and rate us on iTunes. I would really appreciate it.